Ariel Thomas was an ordinary college student with big dreams. She had just finished her morning classes at the university, feeling tired but proud. It was summer, and she had managed to get an internship at a well-known tech company, which was a huge deal for her. She had worked hard all semester, balancing her studies and part-time jobs, and this internship was not only a step forward in her career, but also meant some extra money for her and her family. On this particular day, Ariel decided to stop by the bank to deposit her first paycheck from the internship. She wanted to put the money safely in her account so she could start budgeting for her upcoming college expenses. The bank she chose was a large, well-respected branch right in the center of downtown, known for serving professionals and business people. It was a place where Ariel's father, Elijah Thomas, had often spoken about doing business, but Ariel herself hadn't been there much before. For her, it was just a place to keep her money safe. She stepped into the bank after a long walk from the university, her backpack slung over one shoulder, dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt. She felt a little out of place among the suits and the polished floors, but she told herself that she belonged here as much as anyone. After all, she was working hard, making her own way, and this bank was where she chose to keep her money. At the entrance, the glass doors slid open quietly, and Ariel was greeted by the soft murmur of conversations and the clicking of keyboards. The bank was busy but calm, with a steady flow of customers. She noticed a few people glance at her as she walked in. Some looked away quickly. Others stared just long enough to make her uncomfortable. She tried not to let it bother her. She was here for one thing: to deposit her paycheck. Walking to the front desk, she noticed the bank teller behind the counter. He was a middle-aged man in a neat white shirt and a striped tie, with a clipboard in hand. Ariel smiled politely and stepped forward, hoping to make the process quick and simple. "Good morning," she said softly, holding out the check she wanted to deposit. "I'd like to put this in my account." The teller took the check without a word. He glanced at it briefly, then up at Ariel. His eyes narrowed just a bit. Ariel felt a sudden chill run down her spine. "Is this check real?" he asked, his tone sharp. Ariel blinked, surprised by the question. "Yes, it's from my internship. I just got paid last week." The teller didn't smile or offer any sign of belief. Instead, he reached for the phone on his desk and dialed a number. "Can you hold on for a moment?" he said, without looking at her. Ariel nodded, feeling uneasy. Why was he doubting her? She tried to keep calm and glanced around, noticing some of the other bank employees watching her now. There was a coldness in their eyes, a kind of quiet judgment. After a few minutes, a woman approached. She was the branch manager, wearing a dark suit and a tight-lipped smile. Her eyes fixed on Ariel with an expression that was hard to read, something between suspicion and disapproval. "May I see your ID?" the manager asked brusquely. Ariel handed over her driver's license and her student ID. The manager examined them carefully, her lips pressed together. Then she looked back at the check. "This check appears to be suspicious," the manager said, folding her arms. "We need to verify its source before proceeding." Ariel's heart pounded. "It's from the company where I intern," she said. "I can call them if you want." The manager shook her head. "That won't be necessary at this time. We have protocols to follow." Suddenly, the manager's tone became sharper. "I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside while we review this." Ariel's mouth went dry. "Wait? What? You're asking me to leave?" "Yes. You can come back once this is cleared up, or else the police will be called." At that moment, the small crowd of customers in the bank had turned to watch the scene unfold. Some whispered quietly, others stared openly. Ariel felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She wanted to say something, to explain, but the words caught in her throat. The teller and the manager exchanged a quick look, then the manager motioned toward the door. "Please step outside now." Ariel hesitated, but there was no point arguing. She gathered her things and walked out into the bright sunlight, her steps heavy. Outside, she leaned against the building, breathing hard to hold back tears. She felt humiliated, confused, and angry all at once. How could they treat her like a criminal? Just because she didn't look like the typical bank customer? Because she was young and black and dressed casually? The questions swirled in her mind, but no answers came. People passing by barely glanced at her, but she could feel the weight of their stares. Some curious, some pitying, and some filled with judgment. She pulled out her phone and dialed her father's number, her fingers trembling. "Elijah, they wouldn't let me deposit my check," she said, her voice breaking. "They said it was suspicious. They even threatened to call the police." Her father was silent for a moment, listening. Then his voice came steady and calm, but with an edge of authority she had never heard before. "Stay where you are. Don't move. I'm coming." Ariel looked up at the bank again, now feeling a mixture of hope and fear. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let this humiliation define her. The bank was supposed to be a place of trust and respect, but for Ariel, it became a place of judgment and pain. Yet beneath her embarrassment, a quiet fire was starting to burn, one that would soon change everything for her and for those around her. After stepping out of the bank, Ariel stood on the busy sidewalk, feeling as if the world around her had suddenly changed. The sunlight was bright, but it did nothing to warm the cold feeling growing in her chest. Her legs felt weak, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her backpack strap. She tried to steady her breathing, but the lump in her throat made it hard to swallow. All she wanted was to disappear, to hide from the eyes of the strangers who had just witnessed her being treated like a criminal. The bank doors behind her closed quietly, but the memory of the manager's words echoed loudly in her mind. "Wait, outside," they had said, "or we will call the police." How could this happen to her? She had done nothing wrong. She was just a young woman trying to deposit her hard-earned paycheck. The unfairness of it all hit her like a wave. People on the street continued about their day, some glancing her way with curiosity, others with judgment, and a few with pity. None stopped to help or ask if she was okay. Ariel felt more alone than ever. She found a small corner by the building's side, away from the flow of pedestrians. Her body sagged as she leaned against the cold wall. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to hold back tears, but they came anyway. They slid down her cheeks quietly, and she wiped them away with the back of her hand, not wanting to draw more attention. Memories of her childhood rushed through her mind. The times her parents had told her about the struggles they faced, the sacrifices made for her education, and the pride they felt in her accomplishments. But none of that could protect her from what was happening now. She wondered if they ever imagined a day like this, where their daughter would be publicly humiliated simply for walking into a place that was supposed to serve her. Pulling her phone from her pocket, Ariel's fingers shook as she unlocked the screen. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she needed most: Dad. Taking a deep breath, she tapped the call button. The phone rang once, twice. Then Elijah Thomas's familiar voice answered, calm and steady. "Dad," Ariel said softly, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Something happened. I went to deposit my paycheck at the bank, and they accused me of trying to cash a fake check. They didn't believe me. The teller and the manager. They treated me like I was a criminal. They told me to leave, or they would call the police." Her voice cracked, and she paused, swallowing hard. She didn't want to cry again in front of strangers, but the hurt was deep. There was silence on the other end, and then Elijah spoke. His tone was firm but filled with concern. "Where are you now?" "Outside the bank," she whispered. "People saw it all. I'm so embarrassed, Dad." Elijah didn't hesitate. "Stay right there. Don't move. I'm coming." Ariel felt a small spark of hope, mixed with nervousness. She had never seen her father like this before, so serious and determined. Usually, he was calm, thoughtful, and sometimes distant because of his busy schedule. But now, in this moment, she knew he would stand up for her in a way that mattered. As she waited, Ariel's mind raced with questions and emotions. Why had the bank staff treated her like this? Was it because she was young? Because she didn't dress like the other customers? Or was it something deeper? Something about the color of her skin that made them suspicious. She thought back to the teller's cold gaze, the manager's tight lips, and the silent judgment from the other employees. The feeling of being unseen, unheard, and unwanted weighed heavily on her. Around her the city bustled on, people hurrying by without a second glance. She wanted to shout out, "This isn't fair!" But the word stuck inside her throat. A man, walking his dog, paused briefly to look at her with a worried expression, but said nothing. A young woman on her phone glanced over, then quickly looked away. The world seemed to move on, while Ariel was stuck in this moment of pain and confusion. Her thoughts turned to her friends and classmates at school. She wondered if they had ever faced anything like this. Would they understand? Would they believe her? She remembered a conversation with one of her professors, who once spoke about the challenges many young black people faced in everyday life. The small moments of discrimination that often went unnoticed but left deep scars. Ariel had listened then, but now she truly understood. Tears welled up again, and she let them fall, no longer trying to hold them back. She was tired of pretending everything was okay, tired of fighting for respect in a world that often seemed determined to deny it. But she also felt something else, a quiet strength growing inside her. She had faced challenges before, and she had overcome them. This moment, painful as it was, would not break her. Suddenly, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the bank. The door opened, and a man stepped out with calm authority. It was Elijah. "Thomas." Ariel's heart lifted as she saw him approach. He walked up to her, his eyes serious but kind. Without a word, he put an arm around her shoulders, offering support and protection. "Let's go inside," he said quietly. Together they headed back toward the bank's entrance. Ariel felt a mix of relief and nervous anticipation. What would happen next? Would things change now that her father was here? She didn't know, but she felt ready to face whatever came, because she was not alone anymore. That moment outside the bank was more than just a waiting period. It was a turning point for Ariel, a time when humiliation turned into hope, and despair into determination. Her father's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where the truth would come to light and justice would begin to take shape. The black luxury car pulled up smoothly in front of the bank's large glass doors. People on the street paused for a moment, noticing the vehicle's sleek design and polished finish. The driver, a professional-looking man in a dark suit, opened the door, and out stepped Elijah Thomas. He walked with quiet confidence, his steps steady and sure. His tailored navy blue suit fit perfectly, and his polished black shoes clicked softly against the concrete. Elijah was a man used to commanding attention without raising his voice. His presence alone was enough to fill a room. As he approached the bank, people inside glanced nervously toward the entrance. Rumors traveled fast in a place like this, and the arrival of a sharply dressed man who spoke directly with the manager was enough to raise eyebrows. Inside the bank, the atmosphere had shifted since Ariel stepped outside. The teller and manager exchanged uneasy looks, whispering behind their hands. The story of a young woman being accused of fraud had already reached other staff members, and the tension was thick. Elijah entered the lobby with calm authority. His eyes quickly found Ariel, who was standing quietly near the corner. Her posture was tense but steady. He smiled briefly at her, a small gesture of reassurance. He moved toward the front desk, where the branch manager was waiting, her expression guarded but curious. Elijah didn't waste time with small talk. "Good afternoon," he said in a clear, measured voice. "I am Elijah Thomas." The manager blinked, surprised. "Sir, how may I help you?" Elijah reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. He opened it to reveal a polished ID card with his name and photo, along with the title, Principal Owner, Thomas Financial Group. The manager's eyes widened. She hadn't realized who he was. Suddenly, the situation changed. The bank employees, who had been watching with interest, now looked nervous. The teller who had first questioned Ariel shifted uncomfortably on his feet. The staff who had been dismissive moments ago now seemed unsure how to behave. Elijah's voice was calm but firm. "I understand there was an incident involving my daughter here today." The manager swallowed and nodded. "Yes, sir. There was some confusion over a check she tried to deposit." Elijah nodded slowly. "I see. I would like to speak with my daughter and the staff involved. This matter requires immediate attention." With a wave of his hand, he motioned for Ariel to step forward. She moved from the corner, her eyes still cautious but relieved to have her father there. Elijah placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You may speak freely now." Ariel took a deep breath and told her side of the story. She described how she had come in to deposit her paycheck, how the teller had questioned the check's validity, and how the manager had asked her to leave or face police involvement. As she spoke, the manager and teller listened silently, their faces showing a mix of embarrassment and guilt. They had not expected the situation to escalate like this, especially not under the owner's watchful eye. After Ariel finished, Elijah turned to the staff. "Is this how we treat our customers? Do we accuse them without cause, especially when they come here to do honest business?" The branch manager looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "No, sir, we are sorry. It was a mistake." Elijah's tone softened but remained serious. "Mistakes like this damage more than just individual reputations. They damage the trust our customers place in us. We must do better." He then addressed the entire group of employees gathered nearby. "Implicit bias and assumptions have no place in this bank. We will begin immediate training on diversity and respect, and I expect each of you to participate fully." The room was silent. Everyone understood the gravity of the moment. Elijah then turned to Ariel. "I want you to know that you are not alone, and I will support you in making sure this does not happen again." Ariel's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. The staff began to apologize, some quietly, some more openly. The atmosphere shifted from tension to reflection. Elijah asked the manager to personally ensure that Ariel's banking needs were handled with the utmost care. "Make sure she is treated with the respect she deserves," he said firmly. As Elijah and Ariel prepared to leave the bank, several employees approached to offer apologies or words of encouragement. The experience had shaken them as well. Outside, the sun was shining brightly. Ariel looked up at her father, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. What had started as a day filled with humiliation was now turning into a moment of change and understanding. Her father smiled gently. "Sometimes power is about using your position to protect what's right." Ariel nodded. "Thank you, Dad. I'm ready to face whatever comes next." The car door closed behind them as they drove away, leaving behind a bank forever changed by one young woman's courage and one man's commitment to justice. The moment Elijah Thomas stood in the bank, commanding the attention of every employee and customer present, the room grew quiet. This was no ordinary visitor. He was a man with authority, influence, and a deep sense of justice. His presence alone was enough to change the mood in the room. As he looked around, Elijah's eyes met those of the branch manager, the teller, and several other staff members who had earlier been cold or dismissive toward his daughter, Ariel. He noticed the unease in their expressions, the embarrassment, guilt, and confusion. They knew they had been wrong, but now they faced the consequences of their actions. Elijah began to speak, his voice steady but firm, commanding respect without raising volume. He understood the power of words when delivered with calm certainty. "I want everyone here to listen carefully," he said. "Today, you treated my daughter in a way that is unacceptable, a way that reflects not just poor judgment, but a deeper problem we must all recognize." The employees remained silent, their attention fixed on him. "You assumed, without cause, that Ariel was trying to commit fraud. You doubted her honesty because of how she looked, because she didn't fit your expectations of what a customer should look like. And that is bias. Implicit, unconscious, but dangerous." Elijah paused, letting the words sink in. Many had heard about bias before, but few had felt its weight in their daily work. "This is not just about Ariel," he continued. "It is about every customer who walks through these doors. How many have been silently judged? How many have been made to feel less worthy? How many have faced humiliation because of assumptions based on race, age, or appearance?" He glanced around the room, seeing faces lowered, nodding slowly. "We are a bank, a place where trust must be earned and respected. If we fail to treat every customer with dignity, we fail our mission." Elijah then addressed the teller directly, his voice calm but serious. "You questioned Ariel's check without evidence. That was a mistake. You need to understand that your role carries responsibility. To be fair, patient, and respectful. You cannot let personal prejudices affect your work." The teller swallowed hard, looking down. Turning to the branch manager, Elijah said, "And you, as the leader here, must set the example. Allowing this situation to escalate to the point where you threatened police involvement is unacceptable. You are responsible for training and guiding your staff in proper conduct." The manager nodded, eyes filled with regret. Elijah then took a broader approach. "This incident is a reminder that implicit bias is real, and it can harm people in ways we don't always see. It erodes trust, causes pain, and damages reputations." He looked directly at the entire staff. "Starting immediately, I am mandating training programs focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You will learn how to recognize and address your biases. You will learn how to treat every person with the respect they deserve." The room was silent, but there was a new energy, a sense of responsibility awakening. Elijah paused again, then softened his tone. "I am not here to punish but to teach and improve. We must do better, for Ariel, for every customer, and for this bank's future." He looked over at Ariel, who was standing quietly but proudly. "You showed courage by standing up for yourself. That courage must be supported and protected." Ariel felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time since entering the bank, she felt truly seen and heard. Elijah continued, "This is a moment of learning, a moment to grow." As he spoke, some employees began to ask questions, hesitant at first, then more openly. They wanted to understand how their actions had caused harm and what they could do to change. Elijah welcomed the questions, knowing that real change required dialogue. He told a story about his own experiences, times when he had seen bias in his life, and how confronting it had helped him grow as a leader and as a person. He explained that recognizing bias was the first step, but action was what mattered. "From now on," he said, "we will hold ourselves accountable. This bank will be a place of fairness and respect. No one will be judged by their skin color, age, or appearance. We will celebrate diversity and welcome everyone." The staff nodded, some wiping away tears, others quietly promising themselves to do better. Elijah's words were like a light cutting through the darkness, a call to justice that could no longer be ignored. When he finished, the room remained quiet for a few moments as everyone absorbed what had been said. Then, slowly, a round of sincere apologies began to ripple through the staff. The manager apologized to Ariel, promising to personally oversee her banking needs going forward. The teller offered a quiet but heartfelt apology. Elijah accepted their apologies but reminded them that words alone were not enough. "Actions will speak louder. We will follow through." Before leaving, Elijah gave Ariel a reassuring smile. "This is just the beginning. Together, we will make sure this never happens to you or anyone else again." As they walked out, the bank felt different, lighter, more hopeful. The air of judgment and suspicion had been replaced with a newfound respect and awareness. Ariel looked up at her father, gratitude shining in her eyes. She realized that sometimes true power came from standing up not just for yourself, but for others who couldn't. Outside, the world seemed the same, but inside that bank, a small revolution had begun. Sparked by courage, shaped by leadership, and fueled by the determination to change. After leaving the bank that day, Ariel felt a whirlwind of emotions. Relief, hope, pride, and a little nervousness all mixed inside her. The humiliation she had faced earlier still stung, but now it was overshadowed by the strength she felt from her father's support and the promise of change. The car ride home was quiet. Elijah didn't speak much, but his presence was comforting. Ariel looked out the window, thinking about everything that had happened. The cold stares, the unfair accusations, and then the powerful moment when her father stepped in. Once home, Elijah and Ariel sat down to talk. Elijah listened carefully as Ariel described how the incident had affected her. Not just that day, but in her heart and mind. "It hurt because it wasn't just about the bank," she said quietly. "It was about how people see me, how they judge me before they even know me." Elijah nodded thoughtfully. "That's why we must make this more than just a one-time event. We need to create lasting change, not just in this bank, but everywhere such injustice exists." Together, they began to plan their next steps. Elijah knew he had the power to make changes quickly in his bank. Ariel knew that sharing her story could inspire others to stand up for themselves. Elijah immediately set a meeting with his executive team to discuss the incident and outline a clear plan to address bias in the company. He wanted to make sure that no customer would ever face what Ariel did again. The company would launch a comprehensive diversity and inclusion program. This program would include training for every employee, from tellers to managers, teaching them how to recognize unconscious bias, treat customers with respect, and create an environment where everyone felt welcome and safe. Elijah also committed to establishing a transparent complaint process. Customers would have an easy way to report any unfair treatment, and the company would investigate and act promptly. Meanwhile, Ariel began to speak openly about her experience. With her father's support, she agreed to share her story in interviews and community meetings. She wanted others to understand that discrimination can happen anywhere, even in places they trust. Her courage inspired many people. News outlets picked up the story, and soon it was shared widely on social media. People from different backgrounds reached out to Ariel, thanking her for speaking out. Through these conversations, Ariel realized she was not alone. Many others had faced similar moments of unfair treatment. Together, they started a movement, calling for greater accountability and respect in all service industries. Elijah and Ariel also partnered with local organizations that fought for racial equality. They donated funds and resources to help these groups continue their important work. Back at the bank, changes began to take root. The staff underwent regular workshops, learning about empathy, cultural awareness, and the importance of unbiased service. Managers were held accountable for maintaining these standards. The atmosphere in the bank transformed over time. Customers noticed the difference, and the bank's reputation improved. More people felt comfortable banking there, knowing they would be treated fairly. Elijah made sure to check in with Ariel regularly, proud of how she turned a painful experience into a powerful force for good. Ariel herself grew stronger. She found a new purpose: to fight injustice wherever she saw it. Her story became a beacon of hope for many young people who had faced discrimination. One day, Ariel stood at a community event, speaking to a crowd about her journey. She told them how a moment of humiliation had been turned into a chance to change the world. "We all have a voice," she said, "and when we speak up, we can make a difference. We must never let fear or shame silence us." Her words echoed in the hearts of those listening. The crowd erupted in applause, not just for her bravery, but for the promise of a better future. Elijah watched from the side, proud beyond words. He knew this was only the beginning. Together, he and Ariel would continue working to break down barriers and build a world where everyone was valued and respected. The incident at the bank was a painful memory, but it became a catalyst for transformation, a story of courage, justice, and hope that would inspire many for years to come.